It was a crisp October morning in 2024, the kind of day where the air smells like pine and regret, when I stood at my mailbox in the quiet hills of Willow Creek, Oregon, holding a newsletter that turned my world upside down. My name's Lucas Harper, and I'd spent 5 years turning my great uncle's crumbling riverside shack into my family's Pridea cedar-walled haven by the Rogue River. But there I was, coffee breath still sour in my mouth, staring at a flyer from the Willow Creek Homeowners Association announcing a community wellness retreat at my cabin. 100 strangers, a QR code for carpooling, and a bold claim that my private retreat was now the neighborhood's playground. Open the damn gate. I could already hear someone shouting in my head, though the real yelling would come later. My hands shook half from rage, half from disbelief as I realized my sanctuary was being hijacked. If you were me, what would you have done? The newsletter hit me like a sucker punch. I'd poured my soul into that cabin, every nail and beam a testament to weekends spent sanding, sweating, and dreaming. It wasn't just a building. It was my great-uncle's legacy, a place where I could still feel his laughter in the walls. But this flyer, with its glossy promises and QR code, didn't care about that. It spelled out a retreat with yoga sessions, potlucks, and parking plans, all on my land, without a single word to me. My stomach twisted as the legal implications sank in. If someone slipped on my dock or the septic tank overflowed under the weight of 100 people, my insurance might laugh in my face. I could lose the cabin, my savings, everything. I grabbed my keys, drove to the property, and stood before the wrought iron gate I'd installed 2 summers ago, a sturdy, no-nonsense barrier that screamed private without being a jerk about it. The access road stretched a quarter-mile through dense firs before opening to the river's shimmer. That gate was my line in the sand. I scanned the QR code, expecting some grand event page. Instead, I got a blank screen, a spinning icon mocking me. I laughed, but it was the kind of laugh you choke out when you realize someone thinks you're an idiot. I wasn't playing their game. At the hardware store, I bought tamper-proof security cable, the kind with a serial number that dares anyone to cut it. If they wanted in, they'd have to explain vandalism to the sheriff. But locking the gate wasn't enough. I needed to know who had the audacity to claim my property. Back home, I dug into my fireproof safe, pulling out the deed, survey maps, and insurance papers. Spreading them on my kitchen table, I felt a quiet strength. This was my proof, my armor. I decided to let whoever was behind this dig their own grave before I showed my hand. The next day, I set up a folding table by the gate, a manila folder splayed open with a sign, event host authorization and liability commitment. Inside were copies of my deed, a survey map with clear boundary lines, and a form for whoever thought they could use my land to sign, accepting responsibility for permits, insurance, and injuries. I'd printed state laws on trespassing and unauthorized property use, polite but ironclad. If someone had the authority to turn my cabin into a public park, they could prove it with their signature. I sat in my truck, watching neighbors pass by. Mrs. Clara Thompson, a retired librarian, lingered over the survey map, her finger tracing my property lines. Mr. Henry Walsh snapped a photo of the form. The mail carrier slowed to gawk. I felt a twinge of guilt for making this public, but the HOA had already done that with their newsletter. I was just demanding accountability. By mid-morning, I was digging deeper. The HOA website had nothing about the Retriatno meeting minutes, no board votes. I called the newsletter printer, and the rep sounded baffled. That QR code should link to a URL, but if it's blank, they didn't set it up right. Amateur hour. But the stakes weren't funny. 100 people on my land without permits could mean lawsuits, property damage, or worse. I remembered a case in Deschutes County where a homeowner was sued for $50,000 after an unpermitted block party led to a broken leg. I wasn't about to be that guy. My form was my shield. Anyone signing it would be on the hook for everything. Friday brought a bombshell. Mrs. Thompson knocked on my door, clutching the newsletter. "My son's a property lawyer in Portland," she said, eyes sharp. "He says this is textbook HOA overreach. You've got every right to shut it down." She'd sent him the flyer, and he'd warned that lawsuits could ruin families. Her words steadied me, but she wasn't done. She showed me a text from her son, urging me to document everything: the newsletter, the QR code, any HOA communication. I felt that knot in my gut again, like finding rot in a foundation. This wasn't just about my cabin. It was about protecting my future. I went to Mr. Walsh next, who'd been tracking HOA nonsense for years. Over coffee, he laid out emails and minutes showing that Rachel Vaughn, the HOA president, had a habit of making unilateral calls. She'd banned holiday decorations, demanded tree planting approvals, and tried to find folks for home upgrades all without board votes. She acts like she owns the whole damn neighborhood, he said, showing me bylaws that limited HOA power to common areas. He agreed to write a statement and pointed me to the Parkers and the Lindsays, who'd fought Rachel over a boat in their driveway and unasked for landscaping. Their stories matched, Rachel announced, people complied, and she backed off only when lawyers got involved. I was building a case, a petition of neighbors fed up with her overreach. Saturday morning, a diesel rumble pulled me from my coffee. Mr. Walsh texted, "Gray van at your gate. Says Cascade Locks." Guys on the phone. My heart raced. They'd called a locksmith. I grabbed my folder and drove out, finding a grizzled craftsman eyeing my security cable. He looked wary. "You the owner?" he asked. "Got a call to cut this, but the guy said there might be a dispute." Nathan Brooks, in a crisp HOA polo, stood nearby, radiating impatience. I handed the locksmith my deed. "This is private property. Cut that cable, and you're liable for damages." He studied the papers, then looked at Nathan. "This says he owns the land and road. I was told it's community property." Nathan stepped forward, voice smooth. "The HOA has authority over access. This gate's a safety issue." But the locksmith wasn't swayed. "My license doesn't cover trespassing disputes. Find someone else." He packed up and left. Nathan's face reddened. "This isn't over," he snapped, dialing his phone. I smiled. Obstructing what exactly? A blank QR code. That afternoon, I called my insurance agent, Sarah, who laid out the risks. Unauthorized events aren't covered. If someone gets hurt, you're looking at six-figure liability. She cited cases where homeowners lost everything over unpermitted gatherings. The sheriff's office echoed her. Trespassing events could lead to $70,000 judgments if someone got injured. I updated my form, adding a liability breakdown $100,000 plus in potential exposure. Then came Sunday's curveball. Jenna Miles, a neighbor who did freelance bookkeeping, called, voice tight. I got copied on emails I shouldn't have. Vendors are lined up for your cabin portable toilets, catering, tents. Over $2,000 in services, and no one's paid. My chair felt like it dropped out from under me. This wasn't just trespassing, it was a financial trap. Monday, vendors started calling. A toilet company demanded $400 for delivery. A van rental outfit said their HOA card was declined. Catering for $100, $900, with no payment secured. I documented every call, each one piling on the pressure. Rachel's number was on the invoices, and I could only imagine her phone blowing up. Tuesday, the retreat day, dawned with cars rolling up, families, kids, coolers, all expecting a party. I stood by my gate, heart pounding, explaining the truth. No authorization, no permits, massive liability. Rachel arrived, all confidence, accusing me of ruining community spirit. I handed her the form, now listing vendor costs and $100,000 plus in risks. Her face fell as she read. The crowd murmured, parents asking about medical bills, septic systems, permits. Rachel stammered, "I can't sign this." I pressed, calm but firm. "You had authority to book my cabin, but not to pay for it." She had no answer. The families left, grumbling about budgets and risks. By Wednesday, vendors were in revolt. The catering company threatened collections over $900 in spoiled food. I compiled a spreadsheet, $2,500 plus in obligations, no payments. At the courthouse, I found cases Jenkins v. Riverbend HOA, Carter versus Pine Ridge, where HOA officers paid $20,000, $50,000 for overreach. Rachel could face personal ruin. At mediation, hosted by Clara's son, I laid out everything. Deeds, easements, vendor invoices, case law. My LLC-owned access road had ironclad terms, no events over 20 people, liquidated damages for violations. Rachel admitted she thought her title gave her free rein. We settled. She'd pay vendors over 90 days, admit her overreach, and help create HOA guidelines. Those guidelines, with real case studies, spread to 4 other towns, saving others from this mess. Now, standing by my upgraded gate, the the river sparkling beyond, I feel lighter. What started as a newsletter outrage became a fight for what's mine and a lesson for everyone. What would you have done? Would you lock the gate or let the crowd in? Should Rachel face harsher consequences, or was education enough? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more real-life battles. Let's keep the conversation going.